Some bikes launch with hype, then quietly pile up in the back of the showroom. Today we're exposing the Japanese models dealers are slashing prices on and trying to move any way they can. Surprises ahead, and the last one might be the best deal you will ever see. Number 7. Honda Fury. When Honda decided to launch a factory-built chopper, it turned a lot of heads. Riders were used to seeing custom builders stretch frames, rake out forks, and build wild machines that cost as much as a small house. Honda's idea was simple: bring that stretched-out chopper style to the average buyer at an affordable price point, with bulletproof reliability. The Fury hit the scene with radical looks and a promise of easy ownership. But while the styling caught attention, the sales numbers never lived up to the hype. At the heart of the Fury is a 1,312 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled V-twin engine. It delivers 57 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. That power moves a machine weighing around 663 pounds, stretched over a long wheelbase and sitting low to the ground. The engine is paired to a 5-speed transmission, pushing torque smoothly through a shaft drive, a rarity in the cruiser world. Its aggressive rake angle, narrow front tire, and bold styling cues made it look like it rolled straight out of a custom garage. In many ways, the Fury was a design success. The proportions are right. The frame-mounted radiator keeps the profile clean. The long sweeping lines from the gas tank to the rear fender flow beautifully. In photographs, it is a bike that demands a second look. For riders who always dreamed of owning a chopper but were intimidated by custom prices or maintenance nightmares, the Fury offered an appealing alternative, at least on paper. The problem started when riders compared the Fury not to custom choppers, but to other cruisers in its price range. With a starting price hovering around $11,500, the Fury lands in a very competitive space. Buyers began asking tough questions. Why settle for a mid-size V-twin when, for a few thousand more, you could buy a brand new Harley-Davidson Softail Standard, or even find a lightly used Harley-Davidson Breakout? The Honda name, while respected, simply does not carry the same badge prestige in the cruiser world. Performance expectations also hurt the Fury's reputation. 57 horsepower is decent for relaxed cruising, but for a bike that looks this aggressive, many riders expected more punch. Twist the throttle and you will find plenty of low-end torque. But the Fury lacks the hard acceleration and muscle that bigger American V-twins deliver. Combine that with limited ground clearance, and you have a bike that looks fast, but feels more at home posing than carving corners. Comfort was another compromise. The long reach to the handlebars, low seat height of 26.5 inches, and forward foot controls create a stretched-out riding posture. It looks cool, no question about it. But after an hour in the saddle, the ergonomic drawbacks start to show. Riders often complained about fatigue in their lower backs and shoulders after relatively short rides. Add in the minimal suspension travel, and rough roads quickly become punishing. Today, many dealerships still have new Fury units sitting unsold, often tucked away in the back of the showroom behind more popular models like the Rebel 1100 or Goldwing. While the Fury still has a certain undeniable visual appeal, it remains a niche machine in a market that rewards versatility and practicality. If a showroom stunner can't shake dust, wait till you see the beginner-friendly Honda that left riders confused and dealers overstocked. Number 6. Honda CTX 700. In the early 2010s, Honda set out to create a new kind of motorcycle, something that would combine the relaxed comfort of a cruiser with the practical ease of a commuter bike. The result was a bold experiment, aiming at riders who wanted the stability of a cruiser but without the typical bulk and attitude. It was supposed to make motorcycling more accessible, easier to ride, and less intimidating to new and returning riders. On paper, the idea sounded like a home run. In practice, it ended up confusing the very customers it was meant to attract. Powering the CTX 700 is a 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, producing 48 horsepower and 44 pound-feet of torque. It tips the scales at 478 pounds, making it lighter than most traditional cruisers, but still heavy enough to feel substantial on the road. The low seat height of 28 inches made it extremely easy for shorter riders to handle, while the forward foot controls and relaxed riding position promised all-day comfort. It even featured an optional automatic dual-clutch transmission, a technology borrowed from Honda's automotive division, designed to take the intimidation out of shifting gears. Visually, the CTX 700 stood out, but not always in a good way. It featured large fairings, a stubby windscreen, and swooping plastic panels that gave it a futuristic, almost scooter-like profile. Honda wanted to offer wind protection and visual bulk without actual weight, but the end result left many riders scratching their heads. Cruiser fans felt it looked too soft and modern, while touring riders thought it looked too small and underpowered for long-distance adventures. Performance-wise, the CTX 700 was tuned for smoothness and fuel efficiency, not excitement. The engine was borrowed from the NC 700 series, meaning it offered plenty of low-end torque, but ran out of steam quickly once you revved it out. While it was excellent for city commuting and relaxed backroad cruising, it lacked the punch and spirit that many riders expect when they twist the throttle. Even with the DCT automatic transmission option, shifting felt muted and detached compared to the engagement you get with a traditional manual transmission. Riders used to the lively feedback of a standard clutch often found the DCT setup too robotic, stripping away some of the visceral joy of riding. At a starting price of $7,600 when it launched, the CTX 700 seemed reasonably priced. However, once you started adding options like DCT, saddlebags, and taller windscreens, the price quickly climbed toward $9,000 or more. At that point, many buyers simply chose to spend their money elsewhere, on bikes that either offered more traditional cruiser charm or better touring capabilities. Comfort, one of the CTX 700's selling points, also turned out to be a mixed bag. While the low seat height and relaxed ergonomics worked well for short hops around town, the thin padding on the seat and limited adjustability made longer rides tiring. The soft suspension that helped absorb city potholes ended up feeling vague and wallowy on faster roads, further limiting the bike's versatility. If that felt vague, the next Yamaha goes all in on authentic and ends up outgunned by the market. Number 5. Yamaha Bolt R-Spec. Back when stripped-down cruisers started dominating urban streets, manufacturers rushed to create the perfect affordable bobber. Riders wanted minimalist designs, custom looks without custom prices, and machines that offered reliability without losing old-school cool. It seemed like the right time for a simple, rugged motorcycle that could pull young buyers away from the usual Harley-Davidson entry points. That is exactly where Yamaha aimed with the Bolt R-Spec, a clean, no-nonsense machine ready to ride straight from the dealership Suzuki Hayabusa floor. But even with all that potential, it failed to find lasting success in a changing market. Underneath its sharp design, the Bolt R-Spec carries a 942 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin engine, producing 53 horsepower and 59 pound-feet of torque. It weighs in at 540 pounds, giving it a lighter, more flickable feel compared to heavyweight cruisers. The R-Spec model upgraded the suspension over the standard version, with rear piggyback shocks that offer a more composed ride across rough pavement. A low seat height of just 30 inches made it especially appealing to newer riders and anyone looking for an easy-to-handle bike around town. Visually, the Bolt R-Spec hits all the right notes. The exposed double cradle frame, slim teardrop fuel tank, and bobbed fenders create a tough, compact stance that calls back to the golden age of garage customs. It has an authentic look that many newer cruisers struggle to replicate. For those interested purely in style, the Bolt R-Spec delivered. However, once riders looked past the surface, problems began to show. The first and most glaring issue was the price. The Bolt R-Spec started around $8,600, but once you factored in dealer fees, taxes, and any accessories, the real-world price often climbed near $10,000. At that point, buyers had serious alternatives. Many chose a lightly used Harley-Davidson Iron 883, offering more prestige and a stronger aftermarket. Others stretched slightly further for the new Honda Rebel 1100, which offered better performance and more modern technology for not much more money. Speaking of technology, that was the second strike against the Bolt R spec. Yamaha kept things old school. No ride modes, no electronic rider aids, and for many years, anti-lock brakes were not standard. In an era when even beginner bikes are packed with advanced features, the Bolt R spec started to feel stubbornly outdated. What once seemed authentic quickly turned into a disadvantage for buyers expecting more for their dollar. Performance-wise, the Bolt R spec's numbers look solid on paper, but on the road they reveal the limits of the platform. The V-twin engine provides decent low-end grunt, but it runs out of breath at highway speeds. The 5-speed transmission feels geared more for short city hops than open-road cruising, and the bike struggles to maintain passing power at freeway speeds. It shines in urban traffic but feels underpowered when asked to do more. Comfort was another unexpected weak point. That low-profile saddle may have looked right for the bike's styling, but it proved punishing on longer rides. Riders complained of sore backsides after short trips, and the cramped mid-mounted foot controls added strain on longer journeys. And if you thought Yamaha had a problem here, wait until you see what Honda tried to pull with a so-called touring bike that no one asked for. City style is great, until the highway calls. Next up, a Suzuki that should have owned adventure, but didn't. Number 4. Suzuki V-Strom 1050. Adventure bikes have been dominating the motorcycle market for years, and for good reason. Riders want machines that can handle long-distance touring, light off-road duty, and everyday commuting without missing a beat. Suzuki understood this long before most manufacturers, having introduced the original V-Strom line in the early 2000s. With a reputation for reliability and versatility, the V-Strom became a staple of the adventure world. So when the V-Strom 1050 rolled onto showroom floors, expectations were sky high. Powering the V-Strom 1050 is a 1,037 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that delivers 106 horsepower and 74 pound-feet of torque. Weighing in at around 545 pounds, the bike offers a manageable balance between stability and agility, which is critical in the adventure touring category. The V-Strom 1050 rides on a 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wheel setup, tuned more for street and light gravel riding rather than hardcore off-roading. The ergonomics are upright and comfortable, offering plenty of legroom, a wide handlebar, and an adjustable windscreen for long-haul comfort. Suzuki outfitted the V-Strom 1050 with a full suite of electronics, including multi-mode traction control, hill hold control, slope-dependent braking, and cruise control. The V-Strom 1050 XT variant added spoke wheels, engine protection, and a more rugged aesthetic. It seemed, at least on paper, like Suzuki had finally modernized the V-Strom platform enough to stay competitive with rivals from Honda, Yamaha, and BMW. The problems begin when you start looking a little closer at what buyers actually expect from a modern adventure bike. While the V-Strom 1050 boasts strong mechanical underpinnings, the technology package feels outdated compared to its rivals. The screen is a small, basic LCD unit that looks like it belongs on a mid-2010s motorcycle, not a premium adventure machine approaching $15,000 out the door. Meanwhile, competitors like the Honda Africa Twin and the Yamaha Tenere 700 offer more off-road prowess, fresher technology, and in some cases, better base pricing. Another issue lies in the intended purpose of the V-Strom 1050. It sits awkwardly between categories. It is too heavy and street-focused to be a serious off-road contender, but at the same time, it lacks some of the premium feel that buyers expect at this price point for pure touring machines. Riders looking for hardcore adventure rigs tend to lean toward lighter, more off-road capable machines, while touring buyers often gravitate toward bikes with larger fairings, more amenities, and greater wind protection. Performance is another double-edged sword. The V-twin engine is smooth and capable, but it does not excite. Riders report that while the V-Strom 1050 is fast enough for highway travel and back roads, It lacks the thrill or immediacy of acceleration that newer twin-cylinder engines from competitors offer. The bike is steady and reliable, but it does not inspire the same passion that a new Africa Twin or a Tenere 700 seems to evoke from owners. Today, many Suzuki dealerships are finding it difficult to move new V-Strom 1050 units, especially as newer, more advanced models continue to arrive from competing brands. Riders who once swore by the old V-Stroms are now trading them for lighter, cheaper, or more off-road capable alternatives. And finally, we reach number 1, a brand new bike that shocked everyone by how fast it ended up on the clearance rack. Ready for the plot twist? The R that replaced a legend, now fighting for a discount ticket out the door. Number 3, Kawasaki Versys X300. Adventure motorcycles exploded in popularity when riders realized they could have a bike that handled pavement, dirt roads, and everything in between. Smaller displacement adventure bikes, in particular, promised to bring that sense of freedom to newer riders or those who wanted a lighter, easier-to-handle machine. It looked like a great idea on paper, a lightweight, entry-level adventure motorcycle that carried the Versys name and promised big bike style in a smaller package. But when it finally rolled into showrooms, buyers were not nearly as excited as Kawasaki had hoped. Powering the Versys X300 is a 296 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, producing 39 horsepower and 21 pound-feet of torque. The bike weighs 385 pounds and features long travel suspension at both ends, giving it a generous ground clearance and a tall, upright riding position. With a seat height of 32.1 inches, it is approachable for some, but still a stretch for many newer or shorter riders who are typically drawn to beginner bikes. The idea was to provide a simple, affordable bike that could introduce new riders to the adventure segment. Kawasaki gave it a large 19-inch front wheel for better off-road handling, equipped it with a fair amount of wind protection for highway use, and fitted it with a reasonably large 4.5-gallon fuel tank to allow for decent range between fill-ups. The styling is unmistakably Versys, with sharp, aggressive lines and an upright stance that looks ready for anything. But reality on the road and trail was a little different. The first issue most riders noticed was the lack of power. With only 39 horsepower moving nearly 400 pounds of motorcycle, the Versys X300 quickly felt overwhelmed once fully loaded with luggage, gear, or a passenger. On highways, it struggled to maintain comfortable cruising speeds, especially when encountering hills, headwinds, or heavy traffic. Riders looking for an adventure bike that could handle serious touring distances without constantly working the engine hard were often left disappointed. On the flip side, its weight, though light compared to bigger adventure motorcycles, still felt high for brand new riders. Many beginners found the Versys X300 top-heavy at low speeds, especially when fully fueled or loaded with accessories like side cases and top boxes. For newer or smaller riders who wanted a manageable adventure motorcycle, the bike ended up being taller and heavier than they expected. Another drawback was the basic suspension and braking components. While the bike offers enough travel for mild off-road trails and gravel roads, it quickly shows its limitations when pushed harder. The soft forks and shock can bottom out when riding more aggressively off-road, and the single front disc brake, although adequate for street riding, lacks the bite needed for confident control on steeper trails or emergency stops on loose surfaces. Pricing also worked against the Versys X300. With a starting price of around $5,800, it seemed affordable at first glance. But by the time buyers added crash protection, luggage racks, or other essentials for real adventure touring, the price quickly climbed closer to what more powerful, better-equipped motorcycles offered. Bikes like the Honda CB500X or the Yamaha Tenere 700 offered more performance, versatility, and long-term value for not much more money. Kawasaki promised freedom, but the next Suzuki promised thrills and delivered disappointment. Number 2. Suzuki GSX 250R. There was a time when a lightweight sport bike was the go-to choice for new riders who wanted to experience the thrill of speed without jumping straight onto something overwhelming. That is exactly the role Suzuki hoped the GSX 250R would fill. On paper, it seemed like a brilliant move, a stylish, manageable entry into the world of sport riding that would not intimidate beginners. But once it hit dealership floors, it quickly became clear that the GSX 250R missed the mark in critical ways. Powering the GSX 250R is a 248 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that produces 24 horsepower and 17 pound-feet of torque. Weighing in at 392 pounds, it sits firmly in the lightweight category. The styling draws clear inspiration from the bigger GSX-R family, with aggressive lines, a sharp fairing, and a low, sporty stance that looks fast even standing still. It rides on a basic telescopic front fork and a rear monoshock, with a relaxed riding position that is supposed to make it comfortable for everyday commuting as well as weekend rides. At first glance, the GSX 250R checks a lot of boxes. It looks the part. It is easy to manage. It is approachable for riders moving up from a small scooter or a basic commuter bike. The seat height, sitting at 31 inches, is reasonable for most riders, and the ergonomics are less aggressive than full supersport models, making it a more forgiving option for learning the basics of sport riding. However, it does not take long before the flaws start showing. The biggest complaint leveled against the GSX 250R is the lack of power. 24 horsepower might be enough for city riding and short jaunts on back roads, but it is quickly overwhelmed on highways. Passing traffic requires careful planning, and maintaining higher speeds can feel strained. In an era where the Kawasaki Ninja 400 and Yamaha R3 offer close to 50 horsepower in similarly lightweight packages, the GSX 250R simply cannot keep up. Another major downside is the technology, or rather, the lack of it. Anti-lock brakes, which many new riders consider a must-have safety feature, were not standard equipment on the early versions of the GSX 250R. This omission put it behind rivals at the same price point. Even when anti-lock brakes became available, they often came at an additional cost, further eroding the bike's value proposition against more modern competitors. Speaking of cost, the GSX 250R launched with a price tag close to $4,600. By the time fees and taxes were added, many buyers found themselves dangerously close to the price of a brand new Ninja 400 or Yamaha R3, both of which offered significantly better performance and higher resale value. Comfort is decent for a small sport bike, thanks to its upright seating position and relatively cushy seat. However, the basic suspension struggles over rougher roads, and the lack of adjustability means heavier riders or those looking to push the bike harder are left with no options to improve the handling. Braking is handled by a single disc up front and a single disc at the rear, both of which are adequate but unimpressive when compared to dual-disc setups found on higher-end entry-level bikes. Small, slow, and overpriced. But the final Yamaha promised to replace a legend and left riders with buyer's regret. Number 1. Yamaha R7. When Yamaha announced the R7, hopes were sky high. After all, the legendary R6 had been discontinued, and riders were desperate for a new middleweight sport bike that could carry the torch. The idea seemed perfect on paper. Build a more accessible, street-friendly sport bike with sharp styling, updated engineering, and a price that would not break the bank. But while the R7 looks every bit the part of an R-Series machine, once buyers started comparing it to expectations, reality hit harder than anyone expected. At the center of the R7 is a 689 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, producing 74 horsepower and 67 pound-feet of torque. This engine setup, borrowed from the proven MT-07 platform, is known for reliability, strong mid-range torque, and ease of maintenance. Weighing just 414 pounds wet, the R7 is undeniably lightweight and nimble, with a tight, aggressive riding position that mirrors Yamaha's bigger supersport bikes. The R7 also features a fully adjustable inverted front fork, a slipper clutch, and a rigid chassis designed for serious track days and spirited canyon runs. On the surface, the R7 has all the right ingredients. The sharp, aerodynamic bodywork, twin-eye LED headlights, and minimalist tail section scream sport bike performance. From a distance, it looks nearly identical to Yamaha's flagship R1, giving it massive visual appeal. It sits low and compact, with a 23.7-degree rake and a tight wheelbase, all engineered for agility and quick transitions. However, the first cracks in the armor start to show when you ride it, especially for those who expected the raw excitement of the R6. While the R7 is quick and lively, it lacks the high-revving manic energy that made the R6 a legend. Riders looking for blistering top-end power found the R7's twin-cylinder engine too tame. It pulls hard in the mid-range but signs off early, missing that frantic surge to redline that characterized four-cylinder sport bikes like the R6. The ergonomics, while great for track days, are punishing on the street. The aggressive clip-on handlebars and high rear sets force the rider into a fully tucked position, which feels exhilarating for short bursts, but quickly becomes uncomfortable during daily commuting or casual rides. The seat, designed for form over function, is firm and narrow, putting more pressure on wrists, shoulders, and lower back over time. For casual riders or commuters, the R7 demands a physical commitment that few were ready for. Price positioning also created issues. With a starting price of around $9,100, the R7 sits in a tricky spot. It is considerably more expensive than entry-level sport bikes like the Kawasaki Ninja 400 or the Yamaha R3, but it does not offer the raw speed or prestige of larger supersport machines. For buyers spending close to $10,000, expectations are high, and many were left wondering whether it made sense to spend a little more for a leader bike or save money and choose a more comfortable all-rounder. Yamaha built it to replace the R6. Now it's replacing showroom floor space. These aren't bad motorcycles. They're just bikes that missed their mark. And when demand dries up, dealers are the first to show it. Which of these would you scoop up at a discount, or would you avoid them all? Drop your take in the comments. Hit like if you learned something new, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-world motorcycle breakdowns.